in the commentary on this verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and Prabhupada says that he has the mood of a rasika. Rasika means one who's steeped in rasa, mostly means conjugal rasa. So he says that Krishna enjoys vilasat, the sharp arrows of Bhishma, as much as a lover enjoys the bites of his paramour. And a woman in the ecstasy of love bites her lover out of intense love for him. Such is the mood of reciprocation between Krishna and Bhishma. So even though their mood is, Bhishma and Krishna's mood is not Madhurya, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is using this as an example to show that when the mood is intensified, then the reciprocation is done only for one reason, which is for the pleasure of Krishna and his devotee. Everything else is secondary. So we see in Vatsalya Ras there is chastisement. We see in Sakhya Ras there is friendly insults. In Madhurya Ras we see man, which is anger. So all these they may seem incongruent, but they are actually there as embellishments that intensify the mood. So similarly, in case of Bhishma Dev, his Dasya Ras is intensified by this Virya Ras. And Prabhupada in a lecture also says that this indicates that Krishna is full of all the possible bhavas. That he is capable of reciprocating to any and every bhav in which a devotee approaches him. So one may look at this and say that if Krishna accepts everything, why can't I offer him meat and eggs? After all, Krishna is reciprocating to one's bhav. And the explanation, of course, is that the same verse, 926, where Krishna says, Pratam pushram phalam toyam yo me bhakte prechati tadam bhakti uparatam ashnami priyatatmana. So 3 times he mentions prechati, bhakti uparatam priyatatmana, to indicate that it's not really the patram pushpam phalam or toyam, but it is the prechati, the bhakti upaharatam, and the priyatatmana. It is the love that makes the offering acceptable. So the main ingredient in love is to do what the other person wants. So you cannot say you love a person and then displease the person. So if Krishna would have wanted eggs and meats, he would have said it. But because he does not, we cannot offer that and claim that we are offering it with love. We are definitely offering it with love, but we are offering it with love for ourselves, not for Krishna. Because we are offering it with love for our tongue or for our taste or our perverted mentality, but definitely not out of love for Krishna. Jiva Goswami also comments that Bhishma Dev, in this mood of humility, is implicitly acknowledging in this verse that he is a demon. Why? Because that's what demons do. They attack Krishna, they shoot arrows at him, they cause him to get wounded. And then out of this intense mood of humility, Krishna is praying, Astu Krishna Atma. He is saying that, let my mind go to Krishna. And Prabhupada referring, he does not call it out directly, but in the purport you can see he is referring to this mood, saying that he says that one can see that Bhishma did not offend Krishna, rather Krishna was pleased by Bhishma. And why? He says, why else would Krishna personally appear before Bhishma Dev at the time of his death? Why else would he get him to instruct Yudhishthir? Why else would he glorify him in this way? So Krishna did not abandon Arjun despite the arrows and the dust in the battlefield. Krishna did not give up on Bhishma despite his fighting on the sides of the demons. Krishna never abandons or gives up on his devotees. So when Bhishma is meditating on Krishna, so he is meditating on Krishna as a warrior. So Krishna's armor is slightly pierced. His face is slightly wounded. And there is dust and sweat on his face. So objectively, if one will look at a person standing in front of you like that, then unlikely that you will get attracted. The person has dust on his face, there are streaks of blood, not very well dressed, the armor is broken. But yet Bhishma says that I find this form attractive. And how do we understand this? Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur said this is Sundaram Kim Asundaram Nyaya. So, so mothers are aware of this logic, that mothers will take their newly born infants. So they're very, very newly born, their features are not being formed, their eyes are rolling, their mouth is gaping, and they look at them and they show their children to everybody. And they say, isn't this the most handsome person in the world? And of course, everybody has to agree with it. But the mother is actually feeling like that. They actually firmly believe that the child is actually the most handsome person in the world, regardless of the situation. So similarly, Sundaram Kim Sundaram Nyaya is seeing beauty even when there is no beauty. The logic of seeing beauty even there is no beauty. So that is the logic that is applied to Bhishma. That even though another a devotee in another mood to Krishna may not find that form very attractive. They might find Shama Sundar more attractive, or they may find Bal Gopal more attractive. But Bhishma, because in this particular rasa is infused with love, he finds this form the most attractive. Okay, so we'll go to the next verse, 1935. Okay. Sapadi sakhi vacho nishamya madhye nija prayar balyo pratham niveshaya stitvati parasainik ayur krishna prattavati partha sakhe rathir mamastu. In obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Shri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjun and Duryodhan. So does anybody remember which command is this? Or let me read the verse actually. And while there, he shortened the life spans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. So in obedience to the command of his friend, does anybody remember what command is this?
When Arjun instruct Krishna to bring the chariot in between the two armies so that he can see.
Right. So this is in the first chapter, verse 21, where Arjun says to Krishna, Sena yorubayor madhye pratham stapita me achyuta. So Bhishma is appreciating that mood of Krishna, that in obedience to the command. And at this point, one might think that if Krishna likes to be ordered, then I can satisfy that desire of Krishna. I have a long list of orders for Krishna. Krishna, take care of this, Krishna, do this. And then we know on the authority of Bhishma Dev that Krishna actually likes to be ordered. So Prabhupada explains this in the purport, and I'm not going to read the purport, but just the condensation of it is that the order is the fulfilling of the order is a reciprocation of the love of the devotee. So the primary component again is priti. It's again bhakti. Out of devotion, a devotee may take the position of being superior to Krishna. We see that a lot in Raja Leela, and Krishna also reciprocates. But really, what he's reciprocating to is the love and devotion. So so Bhishma is in this verse is appreciating the intense love of Krishna for his devotees. So in the previous verse, he talked about how out of love, Krishna forgives the offenses of his devotees. This is that mode in which Bhishma is saying that I was actually an offender to Krishna, but yet he has come in front of me. So he's out of love, he's forgiving the offenses of his devotees. He's reciprocating according to the mood of the devotees. Out of love, he's always protecting his devotees. He protected Arjun, he's protecting Bhishma, he's subservient to his devotees. So all these qualities that Bhishma is calling out right now, later on he will take shelter of these very qualities. So there's a reason that he's calling them out. He's glorifying this mood of Krishna because he will personally take shelter of these qualities later on. So Bhishma says, Parasainik Ayurakshana. That Krishna shortened the lifespan of the soldiers of the opposing army by simply glancing at them. So in our discussion on 1.8.22, we discussed about the glance of Krishna. So I'm not going to speak too much about it, but a reference verse to this is 3.2.20, where Uddhav, he also brings about exactly the same point, where he says to, Uddhav says to, I believe he says to Vidur, that certainly others who were fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified by the onslaught of Arjun's arrows. And while seeing the lotus-like face of Krishna, so pleasing to the eyes, they achieved the abode of the Lord. So in the purport of this verse, Prabhupada explains that they all achieved Swarup Mukti, which is acquiring a transcendental form similar to that of Krishna. And in the purport of this verse, 1935 that we are discussing, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that when Bhishma is saying that Krishna's glance took away the life of the soldiers, he is actually saying that it took away their prarabdha karma. And this point is substantiated because later on, Bhishma will refer to again the glance of Krishna as giving liberation to the devotees, which is only possible when one's prarabdha karma has been burnt away. In the purport to this verse, Prabhupada says, the Lord diminished the duration of the opposite party by his merciful glance. It is said that all the fighters who assemble on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attain salvation by personally seeing the Lord at the time of the death. Therefore, his diminishing the duration of the life of Arjun's enemy does not mean that he was partial to the cause of Arjun. Actually, he was merciful to the opposite party because they would not have attained salvation by dying at home in the ordinary course of life. Here was a chance to see the Lord at the time of death and thus attain salvation. So Bhishma recognizes this as as uh, the supremely merciful quality of Krishna, and he says, Partha Sakhe Ratir Mamastu. Then let there be Rati or love in me for Partha Sakhe, for this friend of Krishna. Okay, we'll do the next verse. 1936. Vivahita pratana mukhum nirikshaya swajanvadad vimukshasya dosha budaya kumatim maharaddatma vidayayash charanarati paramasya tasya me astu. When Arjun was seemingly polluted by ignorance, upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. So we see that Bhishma is remembering different pastimes of Krishna in Kurukshetra. So he's and not necessarily in chronological order. So he is remembering Krishna on the chariot field, on the chariot, fighting with him. He is remembering Krishna uh, uh, pulling the chariot in accordance to the order of Arjun. And here he is remembering Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjun. So so he calls. So Bhishma describes in this verse Bhagavad Gita as Atma Vidya, the transcendental knowledge of the self. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur describes Bhagavad Gita as Krishna Vidya. So he translates. So as we know, Atma can be translated into more than one. So he translates Atma as Krishna, and he says knowledge of Krishna. So factually speaking, Bhagavad Gita gives both the knowledges. So the Kumatim, so the poor fund of knowledge, so the word Kumatim, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, indicates, and this is the way that the Sanskrit adjectives are applied, does not indicate that Arjun was ignorant, but it indicates that Arjun was made ignorant. And the point that, of course, he's making is that just like Yudhishthir was put under illusion by Krishna, Arjun was also put under illusion so that the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. Because he said Arjun is Nar. So we know Nar Narayan Rishi, and depending on which perspective you look at, Nar Narayan Rishi are considered to be expansions of Krishna and Arjun. Narayan is expansion of Krishna and Nar Rishi is expansion of Arjun. So he says that there is no question that Arjun is a parishad of Krishna, an eternal associate of Krishna. There is no question of his loss of intelligence. Prabhupada says that his intelligence could not be polluted at any time because he was a devotee and constant companion of the Lord, as is clear in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So how is that made clear in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Does anybody remember?
Is it in the very beginning of the chapter, Prabhuji, when he told when the disciplic succession was broken? That is why now I am sharing this knowledge to you.
It's close to that. It's right after that when Arjun asks Krishna. He says Krishna aparam bhavatu. He said, how can I understand that you spoke this to Surya Dev when Surya Dev is senior to you by birth? And then Krishna says, many births you and I have taken. I remember, but you have not. And Prabhupada in the purport comments that it means that in many births, Krishna and Arjuna have been together, which means that Arjuna is a constant companion of Krishna. So, as a constant companion of Krishna, it's not possible for Arjuna to become polluted in intelligence. And yet he was very much like Bhishma Dev became by Krishna using his pure devotees to further his own mission. And Bhishma prays Charanarathi Paramasya Tasya Mayastu. So Charanarathi, that may I have love for your so Paramasya is Krishna. So may I have love for the lotus feet of Krishna only. Okay, so I'll take a pause over here and see if there are any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Sar Prabhu.
We just learned also from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Arjun came as Ramandara Rai.
Right, same, good points. Constant companion, right? Whenever Krishna comes, then Arjun comes. Any other comments? Okay, we'll continue. 1937. Swanigamam apaya mat pratigyam ratam adhikartam apluto rathastataha dhritrata charano abhayag chaladgur harirvahantum ibaham gatotaryaha. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So, in two verses, 37 and 38, Bhishma is going to make this point that Krishna will elevate his devotees to a position that is higher than even his own position. So, all of you are familiar with the backstory on this one, that Bhishma had made a vow to kill Arjun because Duryodhana was complaining to him that you're being very light on the Pandavas, you're not fulfilling your duty as a general of the field. So Bhishma then, he said, I'll kill the 5 Pandavas tomorrow. And he prepares 5 special arrows. He casts some mantras on it, they're infallible. And then, of course, Krishna inspires Arjun to go and take the arrows from Duryodhana. And then when Bhishma finds out about it, he gets angry because he's Bhishma. He's the upholder of his vows. And because of this, his vow is broken. So then he takes another vow that he will make Krishna break his vow. And in this verse, he's appreciating that mood of Krishna, that in order to uphold his promise, he allowed his own promise to be broken. Now, this again, so one might say that if Krishna wanted to have preserved the promise of Bhishma, he would have let him kill the Pandavas. Why have him break his promise first? But then this is again Krishna balancing so many things at the same time. That he was protecting his devotees, the Pandavas, and he was protecting the word of his Bhishma. And the only way to do both of this, accomplish both of this at the same time, was to have himself break his promise, which he does. Bhishma says that Avapulata, that Krishna quickly got off the chariot. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that it could also mean one of two things. Say that he got off so quickly that nobody saw him getting off. And another meaning is that so avapulta means almost invisible. So another meaning is that even though he got off the chariot, he remained on the chariot in an invisible form to protect Arjun. And Chaladguha means that this was such a momentous event that even the earth shook with excitement in recognition of his effort. So Prabhupada, in a lecture on this verse, he says, Krishna cannot be purchased. His name is Ajit. He cannot be conquered. But his devotees can purchase him, can conquer him. So Bhishma conquered over Krishna. Instead of conquering over Arjun, he conquered over Krishna. So similarly here also, Maharaj Yudhishthir, he conquered over Krishna's decision. So this is when Krishna was saying, I'm going to Dwarka, and Yudhishthir made him stay. So Prabhupada continues, if you become devotee of Krishna, then Ajita Ajita Apyasi, one can conquer the unconquerable. Okay, next verse. Sita Visikahato Vishirnadamashaha Kshataj Paripluta Atatayano Me Prasabham Abhishashara Madvadaratam Sa Bhavato Me Bhagavan Gatir Mukundaha. May he, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. So we see this constant meditation of Bhishma on Krishna as Parthasarthi, and particularly in this pastime. Now Bhishma fought for, I believe he fought for 9 days.
10 days, I think.
Thank you, Prabhu. So he fought for 10 days. So he must have seen Bhishma, Krishna several times during their battlefield. And of course, before that, he had seen Krishna many times. But his meditation is kind of anchored on this particular scene. And he's describing it. Continues to describe it in greater and greater details from different perspectives. So it's kind of very much like sometimes when people are very much into sports, and then there is like in cricket there is a scene and the person has hit a ball for 6 runs, and then you will see that the same scene is described, the camera is describing from the bowler's perspective, from the batsman's perspective, from the fielder's perspective, an aerial view from the so many ways the same scene is described, because just that everybody is relishing that scene. So that is intensified a million times over here, that Bhishma is so much relishing this scene that he continues to describe it over and over again with varying level of details. So here Bhishma says that Abhishashara. That Abhishashara is Krishna rushing towards me. But the acharyas say that Abhishashara is so the verb is a little different from the context that Bhishma is using it. So Abhishashara is not generally used in the mood of a warrior rushing towards another warrior. It is more used in terms of a valiant hero desiring to meet his lover. So Bhishma says, in a similar manner, I became extraordinarily happy when Krishna approached me in anger. Now, superficially, this is rasabhas, because what are we mixing? We are mixing Madhurya ras with Virya ras. So it is incompatible. But the acharyas say that when there is intense prema, then these rasas also can coexist with one another. Like there is a rasa, gora rasa of ghastliness. And there are times when Srimati Radharani experiences that in relationship to Krishna in certain pastimes. But these are pastimes that are executed on the platform of Bhav and Mahabhav. Generally speaking, you don't see such incongruent mixing of rasas. So Prabhupada in the purport also, and he writes quite extensively about it, that this angry exchange does not eclipse the relationship between Krishna and Bhishma, but it actually is an ornament on it. It's an alankar on it. So Prabhupada writes, and he writes this in italics for emphasis. In the purport he says, the astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. That's the end of the italics. And then he says, the Lord being absolute can accept from his pure devotees even in the garb of an enemy. The Supreme Lord cannot have any enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him because he is Ajit or unconquerable. But still, he takes pleasure when his pure devotees beats him like an enemy or rebukes him from a superior position, although no one can be superior to the Lord. These are some of the transcendental reciprocatory dealings of the devotee with the Lord. So Bhishma as a pure devotee and as a Mahajan is aware of this. So that is why he ends up the verse by praying, Sa bhavatu me Bhagavan gatir mukunda. That may he, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. Okay, we'll do the next verse. 1939. Vijayaratha kutumba atatatre dhritahaya rashmini tachriya kshaniye bhagvati ratirastu mi mumurshur yammiha nirakshaya hatagata swarupam. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjun, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjun's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original form after death. So some verses ago, Bhishma had said that Krishna, by his merciful glance, had shortened the life of the opposing soldiers on the battlefield. Now he is expanding on that, and he says those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained the original form after death. So factually, he's confirming what Uddhav says later on, that the soldiers who died in the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained Swarupa Bhakti. So this verse is also the real reason that Krishna descends and performs Leelas. So we see in the mood of Bhishma how strongly he is attracted to this pastime of Krishna. And this is like samadhi, similar to the yogis. So we see in every verse, Bhishma, his mind goes back again and again to this particular scene. his absorption is complete. So Prabhupada says this is the real samadhi. The samadhis that the yogas, I'll read the purport. The mystic yogi tries to concentrate upon the super soul by controlling the senses from all other engagements, and thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee more easily attains samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature along with his body, along with his holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not at the same level. The concentration of the mystic is mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural, in pure love and spontaneous affection. So this is the real reason why Krishna says, Sambhavame yuge yuge. That when he comes and he performs these wonderful pastimes, now Bhishma was fortunate enough to witness that pastime with his own eyes. We are fortunate enough to witness this pastime through the eyes of the devotees. And Prabhupada at one point says that the pastimes actually become sweeter and sweeter as we witness them through the eyes of Krishna's devotees. Premanjana churuti bhakti vilochanena. Because their eyes are smeared with love. So when we see it through their eyes, even if our eyes are not that much anointed with love, but we inherit the love of the devotees. So we have personal experience of that. When Prabhupada writes the purport, and then sometimes we feel a stirring within us. When we see the outpouring of love and devotion in Prabhupada's purport, then even though we may not naturally feel like that, but just because we are seeing it through the eyes of Prabhupada, we also have access to the love and the intense emotion that Prabhupada had. So Bhishma Dev in Viryaras here is meditating on Krishna in the mood of a devotee now. So he is meditating specifically on Krishna as Parthasarthi, the charioteer of Arjuna. So he's meditating on the form of Krishna as Parthasarthi. He's meditating on the mercy of Krishna, by which he protects his devotees. He's meditating on the magnanimity of Krishna, by which he serves his devotees. And then he's meditating on the causeless reciprocation, the causeless mercy by which Krishna awards salvation to even those who are not qualified, simply because they are in his presence. So Bhishma, earlier on, his meditation was more on the externals of the pastime. Now he is delving deeper and deeper, and he's bringing forth Krishna's Bhakta Vatsalya Bhav, Krishna's Kripa Shakti, Krishna's causeless mercy, and he's also, and this is the mood of a devotee, that while they are humble, they are also proud. So what is Bhishma being proud over here of? So he is proud of the fact that the form of Krishna that he could see, so he is describing that form, that the form with the bridle in the hand, with the whip in the right hand, carefully giving protection. He is saying that form even Arjun could not see. I could see that, because Arjun was standing behind Krishna, but I was standing in front of Krishna. So he's relishing the fact that Krishna is so merciful upon him that he is allowing him to see something that even Arjun, who is a great devotee, could not see. So Prabhupada in the purport says that Bhishma Dev never forgot the beautiful feature of the Lord is Parthasarathi, which even Arjun could not see. Arjun was behind the beautiful Parthasarathi, while Bhishma Dev was just in front of the Lord. And as far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishma observed this with more relish than Arjun. So Bhishma over here, he says that Mumurshaha, as one who is about to die. And to indicate now that he has made up his mind that it is time for him to leave his body. So he does not use the word one who is dying, because Bhishma had the ability to give up his body at will. So when he says one who is about to die, it is kind of like somebody coming to somebody's house and then saying, okay, now I'm going to leave, because the person has free will and he knows that he can leave. So he says, now I'm going to leave, and then he leaves. And Bhishma Dev in the same mode is saying that now I'm about to die, because he has now made up his mind to give up his body. And now that he has made up his mind to give up his body, he is fully concentrating his all his facilities on Krishna. So there is a saying, marane yamati sagati, that whatever one's consciousness is at the time of death, that is one's destination. And then there is the famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajati antakalevaram tam tam evati konteya sadatad bhava bhavita, that whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So so one may wonder that Bhishma, who is aware, who's aware of this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, because he was there when the Gita was spoken, and as a Mahajan he's aware of this tattva, that yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. So at the particular moment of his death, he is forcing his meditation on Krishna as Parthasarathi, Krishna in the battlefield. So does that mean that Bhishma wants to be continuously engaged in battle with Krishna? Does that mean that Bhishma next time wants to meet Krishna again in the battlefield, shooting arrows at him? And the answer to that is yes, that Bhishma is actually praying for that to happen. So the nature of these rasas are that they are eternal, and they are very, very intrinsic to the jiva. So Bhishma is strongly bound to Krishna in virya ras, and that is the mood in which he relishes his interactions with Krishna, and that is what he's praying for. So Srila Prabhupada says, how can this happen? That how is it possible that Bhishma Dev is asking for something which Krishna will provide, that he's always going to be fighting with Krishna? And Prabhupada says, yes, it will happen because of two reasons. One, Krishna's pastimes are eternal, and second, Krishna's pastimes are continuous. So Prabhupada says that when the pastime of Mahabharata ended in this universe, it started in another universe. So in this way, Wherever Krishna goes, Bhishma goes along with him, and he is able to relish that particular pastime. Now, in a way, it kind of sounds like Groundhog Day, right? That Bhishma dies and then again he goes back and same pastime. But there's obviously a lot more to it. This particular pastime was the culmination of many, many years of austerities and devotion by Bhishma. So it's not that he just dropped into that pastime, but the pastime is it's the apex, is the culmination of his offering to Krishna. So in this way, these pastimes will continue to offer Bhishma Dev to relate to Krishna in that mood. So Prabhupada says Bhishma Dev was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's promise as Parthasarathi, the Lord's pastime as Parthasarathi is also eternal. The pastime of the Lord, beginning from his birth at the prison house of Kamsa up to the Moshal Leela at the end, all move on one after another in all the universe, just as the clock hand moves from one point to another. And in such pastimes, his associates like the Pandavas and the Bhishma are also constant companions. So one may say that what is the assurance that Krishna will award this benediction to Bhishma? So Bhishma says, Yam iha nirakshya hata gataha swarupa. So he says that I'm kind of like your devotee, but even the soldiers who were there in the battlefield, who were actually inimical to you, they achieved Swarup Mukti. So when you can be so magnanimous as to offer them this great benediction, then surely you can offer me this benediction. So there's a little bit of discussion in this on this particular point that Bhishma makes of Krishna offering Swarup Mukti to the soldiers in the battlefield. Some of the acharyas say that they got Sayujya Mukti, they got impersonal liberation. But here Bhishma Dev and Uddhav, they are saying Swarup Mukti. Srila Prabhupada is saying Swarup Mukti. Jiva Goswami also confirms they got Swarup Mukti, but then he also makes this point that this is an example of extreme compassion of Krishna. That Krishna went beyond limits, and that was because of his intense compassion. Though going to extreme, the Lord has no faults. At the same time, they should not be imitated. So Jiva Goswami kind of explains, saying that this happened, but this is an extreme example. This is not something that happens typically. But even though it is a non-typical occurrence, there is no fault in Krishna, because Krishna is always perfect, but yet it should not be imitated. So Jiva Goswami makes the point that one should not think that Krishna was so merciful on those who were inimical to me. It should not be imitated. So Jiva Goswami quotes this verse from the Bhagavatam 10:33-30. It's a famous verse that Prabhupada would often quote, that one should not imitate great controllers, just like one should not drink poison like Lord Shiva. Okay, so maybe we'll take a pause over here and see if there's any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I'm just wondering, like Bhishma Deva, he knows. I mean, we know that he is a pure devotee of the Lord, and he is in this Virya Rasa. and that's why he's fighting, on the side of Duryodhan. But in our situation, like, we don't know what our position is, and so like a couple of classes ago we were talking about um, uh, the like this Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, this caste system and all of that Bhishma Dev explained to Arjuna. So like the goal, I mean, it seems like, the goal of this process is to create brahmanas, like, this by chanting, or no matter what we are born with, what swabha we are born with, but it seems like we are basically trying to become brahmanas. So but if our nature is not brahmanical, um, are we still doing the right thing by like trying to change our nature in that way, or because it seems like Bhishma Dev did not change, his personality, like in the sense that, I mean, if we look at it that way, like, if we I mean, he is of course pure devotee. I cannot even compare it. It's difficult to like correlate, but how do we, like, my question is, I guess, how do we know when to change and when not to change, or what is pleasing, which of our nature is pleasing and which of
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. So the general guidance is that you're right. So Bhishma was advanced, and he was fixed in the rasa, and that's what he was. That's what he was relishing. So we are not. The general guidance is that as sadhakas, we perform Vaidhi Bhakti. That's the recommendation. So Vaidhi Bhakti is whatever vidhis have been explained to us. Part of it is being elevated to the stage of a Brahman. The four regulative principles that we follow, they're basically elevating us to the Brahmanical to the Brahmanical stage. Not all the qualities of the Brahman, but the essential qualities of the Brahman. I guess the question is that if a person is not so if Bhishma Dev was a sadhak, or at his sadhak stage, would it make sense for him to be Brahmanical? Would it have been better for him, even at that stage, to be a Kshatriya, because his mood with Krishna is virya, is virya ras? It's a good question. I don't know what would be. Does anybody have any thoughts on it?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, here's Sarangadas. I think Krishna in Bhagavad Gita said himself, it's better to do your duty wrong rather than doing some other duty, somebody else's duty perfectly.
So you're actually endorsing Achuta's point. I'm trying to look at somebody who can refute her point. So the point that she's making is that, let's assume I have a virya ras with Krishna in my Siddha Swarup. Then should I start acting in Kshatriya? What's the point in me trying to be Brahmanical if my eternal relationship with Krishna is virya or something else? Right, Achuta, that's the point you're making, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Actually, didn't we discuss about this, Prabhu, last? I think I don't know about the verse. We said we do have these four qualities of ashramas, and based on the ashrama we are in, we need to follow
the varna that we are
varna, in. Yeah, varna, and keeping Krishna. What kind of service we are doing for Krishna, right? Shudra doesn't mean that, oh, he's a Shudra and he is following Brahmanical and with whatever intention he has, right? If he is serving Krishna, that's what it matters. I think we discussed this last 2 weeks back or 1 week back. I can refer to this.
Right. So I guess the question again is that if by Varna a person is, let's assume, a Kshatriya, does it make sense for the person to be Brahmanical?
We spoke about it. We discussed about it. Does not. As a Kshatriya, his primary responsibility he has to follow, keeping Krishna in the center.
So if you were to then, I guess roll it back, then is it okay for the Kshatriya to not follow the 4 regulative principles? The 4 regulative principles are essentially Brahmanical qualities.
But I think we did raise this question as well. Those are the basic in this Kali need to be followed. I can refer to that. Actually, we discussed this point.
Prabhuji, I have a point or thought in this line, Prabhuji. Like, as far as us is concerned, like basically we are not there in either of those varnas for all practical means. So for us, at least we are not having any relation with Krishna because we forgot our constitutional position. So we are trying to raise to our platform first 2 mode of goodness, and from there we are trying to aspire for. Of course, we are practicing Shraddha Bhakti, but we are. So our case is a little bit more straightforward because we can't imitate Virya Ras because we have no ras with Krishna at this moment. So that is easy. But whereas if it is a Kshatriya, like really like Ambrish Maharaj example, he is a king, so obviously he has Virya Ras, but he doesn't have a Virya Ras with Krishna as I understand. So his mood towards Krishna is pretty much like a servant, like a Dasya Bhav. So if we take that aspect, Dasya Bhav means it could be Shodra or it could be Brahmin. So if we literally talk in that sense, but a Kshatriya doesn't mean he should have Virya Ras towards Krishna. Yes. Because Brahmana, these 4 are material designations.
Right. Good points. Any other thoughts?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Here's Rangadas again. You know, in Kali Yuga, we are all born Sudra. There's no qualification as such. Then we have to follow the 4 regulative principle to at least to move us to a certain level. Maybe we won't be at the perfect Brahmana stage, but this is a goal, and we are following Prabhupada instruction because we are all born Sudra.
So perhaps one way to look at it is that the four regulative practices that we're doing, they're not necessarily considered Brahmanical. They're considered more like to be on the platform of a human being. And then we are basically performing bhakti on that. I see the point you're making, because there are places where it is considered that following the regulative principle elevates one to the more of goodness, which is the qualities of the Brahmanas. So that way what you're saying makes sense. But I think I hear what Shayan Prabhu and Ravi Prabhu and Prem Kishore Prabhu are saying, that these are basically, what are they called as, just like foundational qualities. Prabhupada at one point said that one who does not follow the 4 regulative principles should be considered to be like an animal. So they're just like the foundational qualities of being a human being. And then on that platform, we execute bhakti according to our particular mood.
Actually, Prabhu, even if you listen to Prabhupada, I was listening yesterday, I think. So Prabhupada even says it's not even 4 varnas. Even we have another 5th one, Mlecha, right? What about them? So if I hear him right, the instruction was to your point, to go to a mode of goodness and keeping Krishna in the center. That's what I digested.
More than 4 regulative principles, like, more than I mean, when Prabhupada said that we are creating brahmanas, more than 4 regulative principles, I meant the qualities in the Bhagavad Gita, these are the qualities in the mode of goodness, like Shamodama, Titiksha, those kind of things. Like, if everybody keeps, if everybody aims to follow those, they will. It is Vaishyas or Kshatriyas, if they start following these intensely, trying to practice intensely, it will be like everybody will be Brahmanas, like that.
Correct. Yeah, and I think there's no so there's no injunction. Those 20 qualities that are given by Krishna, there's no injunction for devotees to aspire to cultivate all of them. The qualities that devotees aspire to cultivate are given in Nectar of Devotion. Chaitanya Charitamrita quotes it as Kripaluva Kradoha Satyasarasam Nidoshvadanyaye Mridu. So those are the, how many qualities are there? 16 qualities, I think. I don't remember. So those are the qualities that are considered to be devotee qualities because they are in conjunction with what pleases Krishna. There's a lot of similarity between them and the qualities in the mode of goodness. Tolerance, forbearance, then Kripaluva, Kradoha. There's a lot of similarity. The difference, I guess, is that qualities in the mode of goodness are developed for the sake of happiness, and qualities of a devotee are developed for the sake of service. So the impetus is a little different. Superficially, yes, the mode of goodness looks a lot like that of Shuddha Sattva, which is why it is very difficult. I would not say very difficult, but it is relatively difficult for people in the mode of goodness to take to devotion, because they feel they already have those qualities. Even so, they have the qualities. The motivation is different. But when you say be like this, they'll say that I'm already like that. It's difficult for them to take to bhakti, just because they're already experiencing the sweetness of the mode of goodness. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. I don't think we answered your question completely. I think it's more of a discussion that will need its own separate time. But maybe it just gives you something to think about.
Yes, Roji. I mean, I really like that distinction of qualities in the mode of goodness and qualities for being a devotee. I think that's segregation. I never thought about the qualities in that way, like segregating it that way. So that is helpful. Another thing that I was thinking in this line was like Stane Sthita, like Krishna say, like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Stane Sthita, so like be where you are. So that was also another right now actually I'm trying to understand what is my primary swabhava, and then so because I want to understand that first, and then try to best. So that's the thing that I'm looking. I mean, that's the thing that's where I'm coming from, basically. I'm trying to understand.
Right. And I think it's an endeavor that almost all devotees go through. It's also one of the most difficult things to do, because understanding a swabhav is is for the eye to see itself. It's so much embedded within us, so it's difficult for us to be objective about ourselves. Which is why it is said in these things to take guidance from somebody who's separate, who's like your guru or your guide, who can whom you can in confidentiality inquire and get guidance from them. But yes, this is something that all devotees at different points of time, and probably at all points of the time, they're constantly trying to determine that what's my nature, so that they can find out how best they can serve Krishna and his devotees.
Right, like if I'm like Kshatriya, then I mean and probably like so I will probably be like trying, I mean like maybe like so that's why I'm thinking like Kshatriyas also, they could be either on Krishna's side, or they could please Krishna being on his opposite side also, right? Like Bhishma Pitama.
Yeah, and Kshatriyas generally like it's considered to be, the preachers have the mood of Kshatriya, because Prabhupada would say that Maya is a battlefield, and when you go out preaching, then you're declaring war on Maya. The whole mood is Virya, Kshatriya. And if you actually preach, especially if you preach what's called as, it's called outreach, which means that you reach out to people who are completely out there, who have never heard of Krishna, or maybe they have heard, but they don't know much. It's for every 100 times you reach out, 99 times you get rejected. You have to pick yourself up, brush off all your ego and insults, and then go back into the battle again. So one in the mode of Kshatriya becomes preaching. One who's more Brahmanical takes to study of the scriptures, preaching for by taking care of the deities. The one who are Vaishyas take more to management. They try to manage the temple. They take to managing the funds for Prabhupada surveys. The ones who are Shudra basically like to be led. So they wait for others, the guidance for the others, and follow the instructions. So yeah, it's good to be deliberate and introspective about that. Something I always strongly recommend devotees to be, that don't get into the program and just expect it to carry you through. At all points, you have to be very vigilant and introspective.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
One question, Prabhuji. This is related to death. Like whenever we lost something which is very close to us, like there is an emotional pain that we go through. But at the time of death, like is it possible to have that emotional turmoil also? Because the physical pain is so much. So do we still have that emotional pain of leaving everything that we have so far?
So Prabhupada kind of describes that both the aspects that you're saying, that there's a lot of physical pain, because obviously in this body we'll be dying for the first time. So there's a lot of physical pain. And yes, the other point that you're making, that there's so many attachments that we build through our life, and there is so much of animosity that we also build in our life, and both of them, they're both binding. It's not just we just think about the people we love, we also think about the people we hate. That I didn't get an opportunity to whatever, equalize the score or whatever it is. So that's why it is said that we spend our life practicing. You spend a life practicing, and later on, Srila Prabhupada talks about this more in this very particular chapter. That's why we spend our life practicing, so that at the time of like, if you see, what the difference between a good athlete and a great athlete is that the great athletes, they work on reflexes. They don't get time to think or react or assess the situation. I mean, they do, but everything is done through reflex. It's within a split second. And our mood is that through lifetime of practice, and this Guru Maharaj makes this point, through a lifetime of practice, whenever we are in anxiety, our mind automatically goes to Krishna. So when we have trained ourselves in that way, then we are facing the ultimate anxiety of death, then our mind automatically goes to Krishna. If we hurt our finger, we say, "Oh Krishna." If something, so I remember once we were returning from Gita Nagari, and my son at the time was, I think, maybe 2 years old, and we had an accident on the way, and I was driving. So when the accident was happening, there was a difference in my mood and my wife's mood. So the accident was obviously happening because of another car, and I was like cussing at the car and trying to get the car on the road, and my wife was like, Krishna, 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 and I was like, just shut up, let me get the car, under control. So the whole difference in the mood, that if one's mind is naturally able to go to Krishna during the time of crisis, then there is no bigger crisis than death, and then our mind will rush to Krishna at the time. But essentially, one of the devotees gave this very interesting example. He said, think of your life as you have a giant calculator and you're punching in the numbers. 1 plus 5 plus 7 minus 20 plus 30. And at the time of death, you press the is equal to sign. And what does the is equal to comes? Is it Krishna or is it Maya? So that way, our entire life is preparation for a death. It sounds a little morbid. I mean, we are not that we are always, every time we chant, we don't think that, I'm dying, so I should chant. And, every time when we worship the deities, we don't think about death. So it's not that it's morbidly absorbed with death, but it's more like just elevating our consciousness, that it goes to Krishna at all and every time. Does that help you, Prabhu? Does that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhu. So I understood that both the anxieties will be there at the time of death, and both physical and mental anxiety, both will be there. And also, both the times we have to be careful. Our mood should go to Krishna.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's see if we can finish the chapter today. I don't think so, but we'll try. 1940. Lalit gati vilas malugahasa pranay nirikshan kalpita rumanaha kritam manukritvatya anubadanadaha prakritim magan kilayasya gopavadva. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Krishna, whose motion and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrajdham, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movement of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. So we'll see this mood quite a bit about devotees glorifying the Vrajvasis. Before that, we saw that in Kunti Devi, right? When Kunti Devi was glorifying Mother Yashoda, Nand Baba. And here we see Bhishma, he is glorifying the gopis. And once again, we see this Rasabhas. So you look at Bhishma, he's a politician, a statesman, he is a lifelong celibate, bachelor, general. And look at the gopis, simple cowherd damsels who are conjugally related to Krishna. And if Bhishma Dev was walking down the street and the gopis were coming on the other side, very unlikely that the gopis would even talk to Bhishma Dev or vice versa, because the moods are so completely different. But yet we see that Bhishma at this time, when he has already prepared to give up his body, he is meditating on the gopis, and not just on the gopis. He is meditating on the gopis at the time of the Rasa Leela. So he is meditating on the most intimate associates of Krishna at the most intimate pastime. Why is that? So in the previous verse, Bhishma had made this implicit claim. He did not make it explicitly, that Krishna is actually kinder to me than Arjun, because I could see Krishna with the whip in his hand, the bridle, and etc. etc. Arjun could not. Arjun was from behind, and I was in front. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one may say that dear Bhishma, so you're showing yourself to be superior to Arjun, which means that you're a very exalted devotee of Krishna. And then Bhishma says, no way. I'm not the recipient of the highest mercy of Krishna. But let me tell you about somebody who are. And so his mind goes to the gopis. So the gopis are far superior in this respect to both to Arjun as well as Bhishma. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says no one can dare to pray for the position of the gopis. So this is he's quoting Bhishma Dev, as if Bhishma Dev is saying, no one can dare to pray for the position of the gopis. Let that be. I will be successful at my death just by meditating on their nature. So we see the mood of Bhishma Dev over here, that he is laying his claim to success not because of his relationship to Krishna, but because of his relationship to the devotees of Krishna. So this is something I'll talk a little later on, but I can bring it up now. If you notice that Bhishma has never addressed Krishna by his name so far. Except in only one verse he calls him Krishna, but in every other verse he calls him by some other name. Has anybody noticed what is the other names that Bhishma is calling Krishna by?
Mukunda, Arjun, Partha, Sakhe.
The predominant name that Bhishma is calling Krishna is by Partha something. By Partha Sarthi, Partha by Vijaya Sakhe, Partha Sakhe. So he is laying claim to Krishna through Arjun. That, O friend of Arjun, O charioteer of Arjun. And here he is laying claim to Krishna through the gopis. That one who is so magnanimous to the gopis. So Prabhupada talks about this a little bit in the purport. He says that by the grace of the Lord, Arjun was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as a chariot driver. But the Lord did not award Arjun with equal strength. The gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at this stage of his life. So this is an important purport that I want you to remember. So we definitely will not be able to do it in this lecture, but this purport is very relevant to one of the more difficult verses that comes up later on which there is a lot of discussion by the Acharyas and Prabhupada. But I want you to pay attention to this purport and remember it also. So Prabhupada in this purport is saying that the gopis have equal strength to Krishna. And one may say, how have the gopis attained equal strength to Krishna? So Bhishma says Anukratvyata, that in the act of copying the movements in harmony with Krishna, the gopis attained his skill and offered him dancing, singing, speech at his level during the Rasa Leela. They were blinded by their extraordinary prema, Unmad Andha, and how extraordinary it is, Kila. So if you remember in that past time when Krishna had gone, the gopis became so absorbed in remembering about Krishna's pastime, they began to act like Krishna. One of them actually became Putna, and the other one became like Krishna, suckling on the breast. One of them became like Trinavarta, trying to pick up. So they were actually enacting Krishna's pastimes, and the acharyas say that they were enacting it as well as Krishna. So they became so absorbed in their love about, in their meditation on this pastime, that they reached the same level of Krishna, and the absorption in Krishna was complete to the point that they merged. They can be considered to have merged with Krishna. So this is a point that I want you to remember. So Prabhupada says the gopis' equality with Lord should never be understood to be like Sayuja liberation of the impersonalist. So when they say that the gopis, they merged with Krishna, it's not the Sayuja Mukti. He says the equality is one of perfect ecstasy with a differential conception, where the differential conception is completely eradicated. For the interest of the lover and the beloved becomes identical. So the merging is of the interests. That the interests are becoming so much the same that there is no difference between the Lord and his devotees. So Bhishma in this verse is saying that I cannot claim to be at the level of, I cannot claim to have the intense prema of the gopis for you. So he's addressing Krishna. So I do not aspire to relate to you as the gopis did. I cannot claim to be at the same level of Arjun also. But I do have some love for you. I am better situated than the warriors of Kurukshetra because they were inimical to you. Why can I not attain the position of witnessing you as Parthasarthi? So Bhishma Dev is through the logic that he has developed in the verses is laying his claim to having an eternal relationship with Krishna as Parthasarthi. He's saying I may not be the gopis, or not, I may not, he said, I'm not the gopis, I'm not Arjun, but I'm better than you gave them Sarupi Mukti. I'm better than the soldiers who opposed you in the battlefield. I have some love for you. So for those intense love for you, you have allowed them to merge into you, like the gopis. Or you have given them your constant personal association, like Arjun. But because I have some love for you, please give me access to your pastime as Krishna Parthasarthi. That is my prayer. Okay, so I'll stop over here, and next week, not next week, Wednesday, we will finish this, and we will begin with the 10th chapter. So 10th chapter, please read it. It's a relatively light chapter. It's about Krishna's departure from Hastinapur. I went a little bit over time. Are there any questions or concluding comments?
I just want to mention that I'll be sending out this question bank or question like the Purva Swadhyaya questions for this chapter to everybody, so that so Prabhuji has sent questions for each chapter of the first canto, and then if we are looking at getting a certificate after the end of the course, so then we are required to basically send the answers to Prabhuji and then get them evaluated. So I'll be sending it out like as soon as we finish this chapter. So up until now, I think there'll be about 9 folders. So so each chapter will have set of maybe 8 or 9 questions. So they're not. I think only there's one descriptive question, and the others are like pretty straightforward, like 2 to 3 lines each. The one descriptive question is chapter summary. So I'm not sure, Prabhuji, how long do you want that?
Generally, chapter summary is between 5 to 7, 8, 9. When it's a big chapter, maybe 10 lines, but no more than 10 lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mataji. That is very helpful.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll end here. Vanchakalpatarubhayaschet kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnavrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.